Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. Hello there, good to be with you. Welcome to Cruising with the Stars. Now, just before I introduce you to our guest today, let me remind you about these. We are getting thousands of calls every week about these. It's people that have never been on a cruise before. We've got first-time guide to cruise holidays. And those of you who are watching that maybe are wondering, well, could I take our children along? Would they behave themselves? Is there anything for them to do? What about the granny? Well, this one, the Guide to Family Cruising, that'll help you with that. If you'd like a copy of each of them, you can do it in a couple of ways. Call us on 0871 423 4444 and we'll send you a couple of coffees free, a couple of coffees even free of charge. The only thing is that the phone calls will cost you 10p a minute, but it should only take a couple of minutes. And obviously mobiles, they may vary a bit. If you want it totally free of charge, the best way is to get in touch with us via the website, which is www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. Now, I've got such a treat in store for you. Wait until you hear this guy play the piano. He is brilliant. He is sort of famous around the world. He's played all over the world. He's played on ships, in theatres, in cathedrals, everywhere. Richard Lennox, lovely to have you with us today. And you've travelled from Weston-super-Mare.
It was a bit of a horrendous journey, but we got here.
Good, good. You got here eventually.
Our usual white-knuckle ride.
Well, I've heard about you and your riding and motorways and things and your driving.
It's not the greatest of records, no.
No, but you're here and that's the main thing. Now, you started your musical career very, very young, 2.5 or 3. How did it all start, Rich?
I don't know, really. Whether you just fall into it, you don't know you're conscious when you're 2, 3 years old.
Yeah.
But we had an old piano. It was Mum's old wardrobe, as we called it. We used it as a dartboard. Oh. And I just sort of bashed out tunes on it, and probably, you know, just sort of the 5-finger job. And she realised that there was a nursery rhyme coming out. Yeah. Something along those lines. And she got me lessons. I was probably 4 or 5. Yeah. And I went to a lady called Anne Wiltshire, who lives just down the road from me, and started local piano lessons. Hello, Anne Wiltshire, and well done. Absolutely, I hope she's watching. Yeah. And eventually that led, I don't know how it happened, but I got to play for the junior section of the operatics. Oh, the local operatic society. Absolutely, and they were doing all these shows. And what happened was they do the summer season, and they get a slot in each half, in the first and the second half. And I got to play for that. Yeah. And that's probably for about 7 or 8 years. And then eventually I got to play for the adults as well, doing the whole programme. So did you do the old taking the exams, grade 1, grade 2? Did you go through that route? I did that. The same with the piano, the violin, did the violin, did a bit of viola, and then ended up playing the double bass, because when I went to college I had to have a second instrument. Yeah. So I thought the bass would be a good second instrument, as there's less of them and probably more opportunities. Yeah. And then decided that concentrating on the piano and the keyboards and all that was the right way to go. So when you were at junior school, you're obviously a very musical child. Did you show any desire or talent in any other areas like sport or art or drama? Well, I hated games as a lesson, because I'm not a rough and tumble guy. No. And when it came to rugby, just forget it. I used to just run off the pitch. Did you hide? And a friend of mine, just one of these really big strapping guys, every time he got the ball, was just so pleased that he was just running 3 miles in the opposite direction to me. I hated that sort of thing. Yeah. But I like sport now. Yeah. I like watching it. I like playing it. What do you play now? I play golf. Yeah. I'm a fitness freak. Do all the running, swimming, hill walking, all that sort of thing. Right. But I do love golf. Haven't been able to play recently because of the weather and work, but I want to take it up again. Well, listen, what we're going to do, we're going to take a listen to you now. We've got a really great medley, which just shows you a sort of rounded version of all the different things that Richard plays. So sit back and enjoy.
Wasn't that wonderful? The marvellous tinkling on the ivories of Richard Lennox here. That was fantastic. That was so, so good. Do you ever seize up in the middle of a huge piece? Do your fingers ever overrun or you lose your place in the music?
I did during that recording session, actually, because we actually put that together as a result of just some ideas that have been flown together in the studio.
Yeah.
Not individual pieces, as I've done quite recently, but we just thought, right, we'll just do sort of 30, 40 seconds of each piece and just flog it out just as a taster and just see what happens with that. So it was very much no music.
Yeah.
Just literally went in and just thought, right, try this, try that, whatever, and very experimental.
Yeah.
That sounds good, that doesn't, whatever. And we just somehow just knit together.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like a journey up here today with a bad sat-nav.
Yes.
Where it always gets to the... It'll behave perfectly down the motorway.
Yeah.
And just when I want it to work, and I haven't got a clue where I'm going, it breaks down.
Yeah.
And that recording was a little like it.
Well, it sounded good. Very, very good indeed. You say you didn't use music. Do you prefer to play using sheet music or by ear? I learnt to play by ear first. Yeah.
And then learnt to read music later, probably 2-3 years later. And all the theory came with that.
Yeah.
And I always found maths and those kind of subjects very difficult at school.
Yeah.
For some reason, all of a sudden it just clicks.
Really?
And you think, why did I find that difficult? Why that is, I just don't know. It's just one of the weirdest things. But the theory came with that. There's this stigma about grade 5 theory. I think it's all changed now.
Yeah.
But you had to have that to get a job. A bit like to be a lorry driver, you've got to have an HGV licence.
Yes.
And quite how that just turned out, I don't know. But it was always just very much a case of just get those local qualifications then. And,
well, you had to, didn't you? If you wanted to be either a teacher or a musician, you have to say you got it. Tell me this as well. When you went to secondary school, whatever it was, secondary grammar, wherever it was, did you know then you were going to be a professional musician?
I think I probably realised that from quite an early age.
Right.
Certainly when I had local lessons in Weston, then went to a music specialist when I was 14 for 4 years, and it was then that I realised not only did I want to be a concert pianist, I wanted to do all the conducting operas, musicals, doing all the arranging. And the difference with this music we're putting out at the moment, with this crossover stuff, the desire to create something that's associated with you and nobody else was really, really great. So even from a classical point of view, where you're playing the notes as it is, and they all say you can't put in extra bits and whatever.
You can't mess around with it.
And of course it makes you not stand out from a recording point of view, from a performance point of view, but also those purists that stand up and think, and they compare you to 30 other recordings and think, well, I like the Barenboim recording of that, or whoever it is. And you're always trying to just associate yourself with something that's a little bit different.
Yeah, and that's got your trademark on it, which most definitely that did. Well, look, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Richard after this with more examples of his wonderful piano playing. See you in a minute. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. And today I'm chatting to pianist Richard Lennox. And Richard, when you were only about 14, and you were taking the exams and you were playing for the local operatic societies, I believe you had to stand on a chair for them to see you in the orchestra pit, or they had to put you on a big high chair.
Indeed, I must have been about 8, 9.
Yeah.
And the compere came on.
Yes.
A guy called Glyn, who's unfortunately no longer with us. He always made a point of standing me up.
Yeah.
And I stood on the stool. I stood on the piano stool.
Yeah.
And always took that bow, and I could just look over the pit.
Oh gosh, you were meant to be a musician. And when you were 14, now you started taking organ lessons, was it, from the local choir?
Yes.
So, it's a very different discipline, playing an organ to playing piano, isn't it? Not a lot of people realise it.
Totally different. And what's really, really fun is recently I've got to do some quite big gigs, annual gigs at the Albert Hall.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago we did Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue in the second half. Actually, no, it was in the first half, sorry. And then we did a piece called Bauman's Gothic Toccata.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like a Keystone Cops thing, crossed with sort of silent horror movie music. And we orchestrated it, because it's just an organ piece on its own. We put this orchestration with it, and we did it for the first time. That must have been the premiere that night.
Who's the we? You and who else?
That was a group called the All Souls Orchestra that's based in London, and there's a group called Langham Arts, and they do a Christian prom praise annually at the Albert Hall. And it's every bit of music under the sun. It's just such a fantastic gig. There's nothing else like it. It's totally unique.
Yeah.
You've got everything from the secular to the sacred to the popular classical.
Sounds lovely.
And it was absolutely fantastic to just to do a piano and an organ solo in one evening. Two totally different disciplines.
Yeah.
Where with the piano, all you got to worry about
is
just
your fingers,
playing.
isn't it?
Not using any music.
No.
With the organ, you generally tend to use music.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of organists do is there's a button called Next which changes all the registrations and makes the stops flip out.
Yes.
And they mark into the music where that change is.
And your feet are going on the bass.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, for our viewers, I mean, there might be loads of people watching that don't realise this, and good on you, because I didn't immediately. You're playing, and then all around you've got stops coming in and out, and and your feet are going hell for leather because you're playing the bass lines with your feet. It is immensely difficult, isn't it? And yet you did very, very well with the... I was having a look. You actually have played in the cathedrals, you've played classical recitals, you've done cinema organs as well, haven't you? Have you ever risen up like Dracula from, you know, beneath the stage?
Yeah, I did that for the first time last year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing that again in a couple of weeks at the Odeon Cinema in Weston.
Oh, super.
Which is fantastic, because Weston and Leicester Square are the two only Comptons, original Comptons, actually in their original working commercial positions.
Right, right.
You've got ones like Blackpool Tower, obviously.
Have you ever played Blackpool Tower?
Not Blackpool Tower, unfortunately, if anybody's listening.
Oh no, you've got to get yourself there. Fabulous, fabulous organ. So, and also, now you were a regular in the festivals. I presume you did Eisteddfods and all the different...
I did all of those, yeah.
And looking at your biog, you got the highest mark ever known at the Highbridge Festival, and the adjudicator awarded you 96 marks out of 100 for Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Roughly how old were you then, or younger?
I was about 14 when I did that.
That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
But it's quite unusual, because all of the marks, all the way through the festivals, they were always 85 to 90.
Yeah.
But there just never, in my experience then, seemed to be anything higher.
Yeah.
And it was a total shock.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the track like you're going to hear in a minute, the crossover track. It was just a solo piano version.
Yeah.
And I actually played it with music, because I decided literally a couple of days before that was what I wanted to do. It was an own choice class.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what I wanted to play.
What do you think it was that you did to get you that highest ever mark? Were you in a different plane of consciousness, or were you just very careful, or were you carried away by the music? What do you think elevated the mark that
I think
day?
you just zone in to the piece. I don't know what it was, because when I listen to recordings now, it doesn't appear to me that I played it any different to anybody else, which is why you create tracks like we've got here now.
Well, we're going to take a listen to it now. Here is... now, this one that we're going to hear, is this with an orchestra, or is it just on your own, Moonlight Sonata?
Hopefully I may be able to fool some people into thinking it's an orchestra. It's not. This was the easiest track to record on the album. Yeah. There was no orchestral dubbing involved. This is all electronic pads.
Right.
And we get about halfway through, and there's actually drums in the middle of Moonlight Sonata.
Drums have got...
When I actually I said to the engineer...
Infamy!
I said to the engineer, I want to put drums into Moonlight Sonata. He nearly had a fit. He said, that's never going to work.
Yes.
And it does actually work surprisingly well.
And here it is. Now that was the beautiful and rather different, slightly unusual and incredibly wonderful version of Moonlight Sonata by Richard Lennox. It did work. You're right, the pads, it did work. It didn't sound silly, drums appearing in the middle.
It was the easiest track to put together, being electronic pads, rather than 5 hours of dubbing.
Yeah. So, well done, that was absolutely super. Where is your favourite venue, Richard? Where do you enjoy playing the most?
I think a lot of people's favourite venue is the Royal Albert Hall, without a doubt.
Right.
I think you've only got to walk up the ball run at the back of the stage.
Yeah.
And there's just something about that place.
Yeah.
And this is why I was watching a programme on telly the other night, and 2 people went into there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's the whole feel of it. Not only the size, even though it's such a huge place, it's still got that intimacy about it.
Yes.
When you've got 6,500 people in there.
But it's a bit like the London Palladium. I've been on the stage there, and that I was really surprised at actually how small it was. I didn't find it to be that big. Again, it's the intimacy of it. Do you ever get terribly nervous before you play?
I only get nervous if I'm worried about something, whether it's something that might go wrong with someone else, that's connected with the concert or the show, or maybe something that I'm doing where it's just not going to go right. If it's literally on that border. When we did the Gershwin, the Rhapsody in Blue, a couple of years ago, what we'd done is there's so many time constraints with the programme, so we cut a lot out. And we had to use music during the rehearsal to just literally see where we were going.
Because you could get lost.
Absolutely. It just wasn't, we're cut there. It was that bit was there. Almost the end at the start.
Playing a new jigsaw puzzle.
Absolutely. Like at least I knew with the organ solo that everything was going to be okay with that. It was just get up there and just play it. But coming on to do that Gershwin, I thought, 2 minutes before, am I going to do this with music or not? And decided not to. And they'd actually had the music stand up ready.
And it still
because
worked,
we'd actually rehearsed with all the cuts. But went on, and that gave me a lot of confidence to think that even if you've still rehearsed something, there's a bit of...
you need a bit of backup sometimes.
Absolutely.
Listen, we're going to take a little break now, and then coming up in a minute we're going to hear a touch of how you handle operatic piano, a bit of the Marriage of Figaro, which I'm looking forward to. So we'll be taking a listen to that in just a minute. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. And today I'm chatting to Richard Lennox. Not only does he play the piano, but he plays the organ, the double bass, viola, cello. You play all of them, don't you?
I got my basic achievement on the viola.
Oh, right, basic achievement.
And it's just got a lower bottom string. So whether I could still play it now, I don't know.
Oh, hey, listen, you have played it. That's the main thing. What are the aspects of your work that you don't enjoy sometimes?
What I really dislike is the time wasted in studio production and also rehearsals. Putting material together, you've done your part, you've recorded everything. When you're dubbing things, you've just got da, whereas with an orchestra it would just go down in one. And then you've got that process afterwards with the edit, which is then down to somebody else. And that just drives me a bit mad.
Do you sit in on that?
You do,
just to make sure it's the right sound.
A lot of people don't like you doing that. They like you to leave the editing to them, but there again, it's your product going out, and you want control of that. So that's a little bit frustrating because you're not in control of that. It's not with your playing. Also, the driving aspect and doing the thousands of miles. I love driving. I'd love to be a lorry driver. I mean, I'm a big fan of Eddie Stobart trucks and trailers. I absolutely love it. And I could just see one of his lorries putting up, that big, have one of my pianos on the back or something. That would be great. But I love the driving, but the downside is when you're knackered after a gig. And 3 years ago, I was pretty lucky to come out of an accident.
What happened?
And I'd spent 2 days rehearsing with a rock band, and we'd shot this video. We rehearsed on the Wednesday night, and we drove 80 miles north the following morning, and we shot this video. We started about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we finished at 8 at night. And I could have stayed over But I wanted to get back to prepare for a gig the following day on the Thursday, and I decided to drive back that night. And I'm one of these guys that cuts everything to the nearest 5 minutes.
Right.
I run my life to the nearest. And
it's a problem I have as well.
Absolutely.
I'm never ready 10 minutes early. I'm never.
You watch the sat-nav too much and think, if it says you arrive at 4, you arrive at 4.
Yeah.
And that's the way you run yourself.
Yeah.
But I got to Cheltenham and I had the heat going because I was freezing cold, and I nodded off and
You
whacked
fell asleep while you were driving?
Absolutely. And I ended up in the back of a lorry.
Oh, dear.
And the worst thing was I was really going for it because I wanted to get home.
Yeah.
Stupidly, really, really stupid. I mean, I just can't believe I did it now. It'll never happen again. But I was doing just under a ton, and I hit the back of this lorry doing 50.
Oh, dear, dear.
And I ended up sideways on the motorway.
Yeah.
And just as I got out the car, I was just about conscious. Got out the car. And then a BMW came bombing down the slow lane and went into the side of that. So every bit of gear I owned was in that car.
Yeah.
And I thought it would have been all right. I got out the car thinking the gear's all right, the gear's okay.
Yeah.
And then 2 minutes later...
You're talking about electronic gear, electronic keyboards, that sort of thing?
I had 3 keyboards in there, the cable racks, the stands. And still, the quick lock stand I was using last night, it's still mangled from the accident. It's just sort of wobbly.
Yes, yeah. What about all your clothes? Were they all over the motorway?
All over the motorway. My boxer shorts were on the central reservation. I had shirts halfway up the road.
Yeah.
What was incredible is that I had one of those drum stools.
Yeah.
And it's got one of those circular seats on it. And it became loose after a time.
Yeah.
So I asked a friend of mine who works in a garage whether he'd weld it back together.
Yeah.
So he did that, and it was absolutely rock solid. It didn't move anywhere. And in that accident, it was braced down in between a cable bucket, which is actually a North Somerset Council bucket. I don't tell anyone, just put some masking tape over it.
Yeah.
It was braced down in between that and an aluminium flight case.
Yeah.
And the actual stand was mangled on one side of the motorway.
Yeah.
And that circular stall bit that was actually welded on, it was never found.
You were a lucky boy.
And you just cannot believe what impact like that does.
Lucky man. Well, listen, we're going to, because my heart's in my mouth listening to that story now. So we're going to take a listen to you now playing Marriage of Figaro. Is this your own arrangement of it?
This is my own arrangement again, yeah.
Okay, here we go. That was Richard Lennox and his arrangement of The Marriage of Figaro. We were talking then about, you know, you're not too fussy on the driving. I know you enjoy working on the cruise ships, but you sometimes have to play the dreaded background music, don't you?
Oh, I hate it, I really do.
Show me the nice face you pull when you're playing. Yeah.
I think the kindest request was take a break.
Yeah.
Back some years ago, I worked on a P&O ferries.
Yeah.
I forget which one it was, but every night, that was the first time I'd actually been away from home for any length of time. 3 months it was.
Yeah.
And I was doing cocktails in the bar, and there was a little Parisian bar, and there was the main restaurant area.
Yeah.
And I was playing in there every night.
Oh God.
And I was just thinking, not only think of the money, because the money wasn't particularly good.
No.
But just think of it as a gap when you're away from home.
Yeah.
And being the first major job.
Yeah.
But it was horrible.
No.
Some people would come up and appreciate it, and the others would say, I'll just say, the kindest request was take a break.
Yeah, isn't that terrible? I mean,
horrible.
We've all done it. We've all sung sitting on a stool in a corner of a restaurant. You know, someone said, can you play Blanket on the Ground? Of course I can. Come and look out of the window. Big old moon is shining down. And you think, I wish that I was in Kathmandu or anywhere else than here tonight. I've been there. Listen, we're going to take another quick break. I will be back with you with more of Richard's wonderful piano playing in just a minute. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments. Today I'm chatting to pianist and all-round musician Richard Lennox, and pretty damn marvellous you are, I tell you. What were your teachers like at college, or professors, or whatever you want to call them?
I don't know whether I dare say. Yeah. I didn't get on well at college and school at all. School was a total nightmare for me.
Why?
I was a total loner.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say I didn't get bullied, but I got picked on.
Yeah.
Because I was different.
Yeah.
And I get up in assemblies and play that sort of thing, and I don't think the other students and kids sort of knew how to react to all of that.
No, you'd have the mickey ripped out of you, to put it in a northern way.
Absolutely.
But did that make you strong? Or did it make you a bit sad and introverted?
I think it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that carried me through right from school to college.
Yeah.
And when I got to college, because I'd had 10 years of playing for the shows, starting with the local operatics, and that sort of led to other things. And college couldn't understand that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like going into the army, bang, you know, no, you can't do this. I actually had one guy saying, one teacher, he actually burst in on me when I was playing this piece. He said, you can't play that, you're in the first year. Only third years play that.
Yeah, oh dear.
And I just found that extraordinary. And I left after my second year for that reason.
Right.
But I did have, in the whole of the college, there was two very nice teachers who, every time a committee meeting was held about me to discuss what to do with me, they'd come and tell me what was said.
Oh,
but it was a bit of a nightmare.
But the bottom line is, baby, look at you now. The proof of the pudding is the fact you're a professional musician and you're in great demand. And we're going to see why now with Richard's beautiful version of the Flower Duet. Wasn't that brilliant? Now, Richard, I just love his music so much that we've decided that we were going to play a couple of his pieces in this final quarter of today's show. And this one is The Big Bang Theory. It's the Queen of Sheba. It's something that you leave people on a high with. Tell me a bit about this, how you came to be playing this.
I play for a lot of weddings, being an organist.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wouldn't it be nice to do something different with this? And the same with the Wedding March, which I've just done over the last couple of months. I've done a crossover version of that. And this is on the first album, The Car Beneath the Storm. And it's just, you've got the rock with the crossover, you've got the rap rhythms in the middle.
Yeah.
And I've managed to sell it to 2 weddings so far.
Brilliant.
Literally just by, a lot of couples come to you and they say they haven't actually got a clue about what music they'd like.
Yeah.
So they say, have you got any ideas? And I take that opportunity to say, look, I've got this Wedding March that's slightly different and this Queen of Sheba. And you play it to them and they love it.
Yeah. And where can people get your CD if they want to get your CD?
They go onto my website, which is richardlennoxmusic.com.
Right.
And there's going to be an option to buy on there. I've just redesigned the site at the moment, but that'll be up and running. So if you go on there, you can purchase a copy.
Okay, and here it is, The Queen of Sheba. Ta-da! Wasn't that wonderful? That was Richard Lennox's version of The Queen of Sheba. What do you think your professors at college would have thought of that, Rich?
I hope they'll love it.
Yeah.
They were slightly against me and my ideas for putting arrangements like that together, but it was always very sort of straight-based. They wanted you to learn ordinary repertoire.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to go down the route to make myself different. I
Well,
always
as they say, a prophet is never recognised in his own country.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. So, very briefly, what does the future hold for you?
I really want to be a serious recording artist.
Yeah.
And hopefully with the angles I'm taking with the music, hopefully it will prove that.
Well, I think...
But to take all this music on the cruise lines, I think they'll love it.
Well, if today's offering is anything to go by, I think you'd be brilliant. And thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
You were wonderful. Wasn't he great? Richard Lennox. And from me, take care. Cruising with the Stars is brought to you by Tony West Entertainments.